I got a lot to get through today. I know you'll have some questions, so let's get to it. The first, Maritime Park, you guys saw the council had agreed to extend the option for 30 days to inspire communities for us to bring forward a lease for them to review. I believe the expectation is that the council members will receive that lease today. If it's not today, it's tomorrow. I'd have to get checked with Adam, but I know that we're putting the finishing touches. There were some council members calling, I believe, yesterday afternoon, and we were just kind of at the final part of that to allow them the opportunity to have as much time as possible to review it and ask staff, administration any questions, and ask the developer any questions. So we're glad to see that move forward. The expectation is, barring something unforeseen, that this will be on the August 8th agenda, and we'll have the discussion of what our community wants to see there. A few things that you'll see when you do review that. We were very intentional about ensuring that we put controls, as many reasonable controls in place to make sure that the development continues to move forward. I think all of our frustration as community members when it comes to this park is talking about things and threatening to do things that don't get done. Development's very complex and very tricky, and as we all know, circumstances change drastically year to year, month to month sometimes, and I think you could say that about this project as well, given all of the different circumstances. But we've done the best job that we can to make some notable changes from when I started this negotiation that I think are important. Number one, there is no tax abatement that's coming from the city. I believe it was 10 years of 75% and then another 10 years of 50%. Now, if Senate Bill 102 goes into play, of course, we're preempted on that abatement, which would only be the ratio of the units in the building, not the entire parcel. So there will be no city tax abatement that is offered at this juncture. No less than 200 residential units in Class A apartment structure, no less than 125 hotel rooms that also have to carry a certain level of quality. So if, let's say they were to agree with a certain flag hotel and that falls through, that now it can't go to a significantly lower quality hotel. It has to stay at a certain level. So there's language that you'll see in that. At least $55 million spent on development and constructing this project. Frankly, I don't think that's going to be an issue, considering the other requirements of no less than 200 residential and 125 hotel. I don't think those two things can be done on that parcel for anywhere near 55 million, so I would expect it would be much higher. And the initial application for building permits is due by June 30th, 2025. So that would be that first benchmark that we talked about. What we want to see is we want to be great partners. We appreciate the investment in the city, but we want to see this project continue to move forward and not be stuck in neutral. So that would be the first big benchmark. June 30, 2025 would be is when the initial application for building permits will be due. I don't remember if that date actually got pushed 30 days because of this 30-day delay, but it's going to be somewhere in that ballpark. It can be extended one time for up to 3 months for $7,500 a month if they needed another 3. So lots of other details you'll see in there. Vertical construction within 45 days of all city permits being issued, and substantial completion of the projects by June 30th, 2028. It could be extended for 1 year periods twice, but the non-refundable extension fee is $175,000 for the first and $200,000 for the second. We built those in based on what we thought estimated property tax would be on that project. So the argument is, if you need a year or 2 extra years than what you've promised us, then we're going to start to see the return on investment of what the property tax would have been. That's ultimately how we've said that, is you can have another year if you'd like, but our expectation is that our citizens are going to start seeing revenue generated from the site. So again, I know y'all, as you guys will review it, certainly feel free to ask any questions on that front. We can come back to that. But budget update, we should get, or anticipating the budget, again, barring something unforeseen, should be released later this week. It should be by the end of this week. The public hearing on the budget's looking like it's going to be September 4th and September 11th. Again, those aren't in stone yet, but that's what it's looking like now. and we're working on getting a schedule set for budget workshops for the city council, which will likely be somewhere in mid-August. So the second or third week, we're working on with Don and the council on getting that exact date. And so we'll be, obviously, it'll come out Friday, and certainly prepared to any questions that you guys will have on Monday. Pensacola Energy update. It's kind of a non-update update. We're evaluating an appeal. You guys received a press release from a law firm, the law firm representing the other side, the plaintiff, in this. And obviously, because of that, we've had lots of phone calls to our 311 department asking where people can pick up checks. That is not, we are nowhere near that, regardless of what we decide. So we're not going to talk about merits of the case. Again, this is really an open legal matter. It continues to be on the city side, and so we're working with our outside counsel, and of course through Adam and our city attorney's office for best next steps. So no, we're not going to have any comment further on details of that. Feel free to ask questions if you like. If it's something that I can't answer, I will, but don't have high expectations that I can answer a whole lot of questions for you. As far as ST engineering goes, obviously goes without saying, we don't want to hear about anybody who lives in the city to lose their jobs. That's obvious, and it's important to us, whether you grew up here or you've moved from here or moved from another place to live here. We want you to have a good experience here, so there's no doubt about that. And certainly I appreciate Grace bringing to our attention and the council's attention what's going on there. And also I appreciate ST had sent myself a release, and I think the media release this morning, giving some greater detail. As Grace mentioned Thursday, and I'll tell you guys, it's difficult for the city to play an active role in how a private company operates its department, obviously, and I appreciate that us being aware of what's going on is important, and if there's something that we can do to advocate for Pensacolians with any company, that's good to know. But I appreciate ST coming out with a statement now and kind of to give us a little clarity and understanding about what's going on. So I understand both sides of that, and as I said, I'm not going to be able to comment. I don't know a lot of the details that ST knows about where things stand, but we want to support people who live here, and we certainly want to support organizations who have their business here and employ people here. So we'll do the best we can to kind of navigate those two things. Airport updates. Certainly commend our airport staff. We had nationwide. You guys have been either reporting on it or seeing it be reported on about all of the nationwide issues that we're dealing with right now because of technology that are still lingering. I know our lots continue to be filled. We got a few different updates. I think we have a new exit for the airport to be able to leave the airport property opening up by the end of this week. We've got just we're replacing the signage as you come in. That's really worn. The sun has really done a toll on that. You can barely read now. We're getting all of that done by the end of the month, and then we're working also on a new cell phone lot that'll begin soon, right when you come in to the right. And not only do we need the capacity, but also to have proper enforcement of what's happening closer to the terminal. We want to make sure that if we're asking people to move, that we've got somewhere to move them to. So, you may see in coming months that we'll ask people to adhere a little closer to what the actual rules are. We've been a little more lenient on that because of the lack of capacity. So once we have the cell phone lot in, we're hoping to make sure that we follow those rules at the curb as best we can. CRA Workshops tonight at DeViller's office building from 5:30 to 7. There's one August 7th at the Spring Street Library from 9 to 10:30 in the morning, and there's one at Lost Pizza August 12th on 1200 Barrancas Avenue, 6 to 7:30. And those, of course, are the workshops to hear from our citizens about what they want the priorities of the CRA and those CRA dollars to be. So certainly would encourage anybody, whether you live there or you interact or you work there, play there, we want to hear from you and making sure that your priorities are our priorities. Party in the Park also. Again, we've got lots of planning and lots of community engagement going on. 2-day event at Hollis T. Williams is this weekend Friday. It's actually Friday evening and Saturday. So Friday evening at Blake Doyle Skate Park from 5 to 9, and then Saturday at the Hunter Pool from noon to 5. So we've got the CRA updates, but we also these two events are specific to your priorities and what you want to see at Hollis T. Williams in our Equitable Development Framework Plan. So more details on our website, including a link to the survey, and hopefully we'll see you there this weekend. Last quick couple things: smoke alarm Saturday. This Saturday beginning at 9 a.m. We've put in more than 730 smoke alarms from October 2023 to July 24, and we think we'll reach 800 by the end of August. And just to give you perspective, and how appreciative I am of our fire department, the entire fiscal year 23-24, the Red Cross, who is our amazing partner in this, they're the ones providing these smoke alarms that's allowing us to do this. I think they put in 100 for the fiscal year 23-24, and we're at 730. So it's been a really good partnership that they've got the equipment for us to put in, and we've got an amazing fire department that's now really upping the game and helping get those put in. And what's really cool is we've actually had several fire departments now seeing the success of this all throughout the Panhandle that are wanting to copycat what we're doing with their local Red Cross. So, City of Pensacola employees, Waterfront Mission, the Be Ready Alliance, the Brace, Santa Rosa County, CERT, the Okaloosa CERT, Team Rubicon, Navy Federal Credit Union, and again, American Red Cross. So, I don't remember the exact cities. I know Crestview is one of them. It might be in some of the counties as well that are kind of looking to do what we're doing over here because it's been so successful. So a huge thank you to all of them. And lastly, the Mayor's Neighborhood Cleanup is Saturday. It's Eastgate, Parker Circle, and Broadview Farms areas up there in District 2. So curbside by 7 a.m. and you'll find more information on the website. So that is all I have right now, and happy to give you any answer any of your questions.
Mayor, on Inspired Communities Florida, you just said that if Inspired does not invoke SB 102, Live Local, the entire tax abatement situation could change?
No, that's not. No, what I said is we have not, compared to the previous negotiation prior to this administration, there was conversation that of 10 years of 75% tax abatement and another 10 years of 50% tax abatement to help incentivize. We are not taking the position that we plan on doing that from the city side. What I'm saying is that we're preempted by whatever tax abatement happens as a product of Senate Bill 102, right? We have no say in that. That's part of the incentive of using Senate Bill 102. So what we're saying is we are not bringing city tax abatement to this project. And what the only qualifier I'm leaving is we're 3 years out. I mean, if we're talking about a $300 million investment, I mean, there's lots of things. So I would never say I absolutely would never consider it no matter what. But what I can tell you is we're taking the position that we are a city in demand. We do have growth here. And like any project, I don't care if it's on Maritime Park or anywhere else, anytime any kind of abatement is discussed at the city level, I need to understand what the return on investment for our citizens are. And I say the same thing. I do the same math you do. That's what I tell every developer. So if you want an incentive that's worth this over this amount of time, then I want a return that's worth that over that amount of time. And we need to be able to defend it. So I'll never say there will never be an abatement. That would be an unfair position to put myself or the council in, frankly, at this early stage. But we are entering this lease that's going in front of the council with the posture that we are not giving a city tax abatement.
You said in the last several days you continue to negotiate. Is there any possibility that they would not invoke SB 102? Has that come up? Have they told you that?
No. I mean, the conversation now, mainly based around the height restriction, right? Because what was shown and what you'll see as the site plan only can have the height that it has based on Senate Bill 102 also preempting us on height. So, there's a lot of misinformation out there that's somehow just something that we can decide to do or not do. That's not the case. It actually is. So it going 12 stories above parking is also a product or benefit of Senate Bill 102. So if I were to speculate and say that if they were to not use Senate Bill 102, I think there'd be drastic changes. I would assume you'd have to ask them, but I would imagine if they can't do that and build at that density level, then there's going to be things to discuss. So I can't say whether. I mean, I know that's their intent because that's going to be a lot of time and effort and money put into designing something that can't be built. At the way it's designed. So we can look at what controls we have in place, but it was asked during the council meeting, well, why don't you have these assurances? I think we need to have all of us need to have a better understanding of how development works. No one would, at this juncture, without a lease signed, without site control, would ever spend $1 million+ on design. No one would ever do that. So I don't care if they walked away and we had 5 more developers looking at projects here. No one's going to have a full design set of plans for something that they don't control. And I don't know, why would Florida Housing or Senate Bill 102, why would they entertain giving someone clearance on a piece of property that they don't control either? So it's a lot of chicken egg conversations and just having to try to understand what the actual process is. We all want accountability. We all want, and I think you'll see if you were to compare the previous, where we picked up in this administration and where we are today, I think you'll see that urgency from us, is that we want something done there, but we want to continue to see accountability and we want to continue to see progress, not 2 and 3 years of nothing happening and nothing moving.
Where does that leave Valencia?
Valencia, we continue to be in conversations with Valencia. Remember, the previous iteration of this was we had asked Valencia to basically sit on the sidelines while we figured out because of the parking situation. So I'm appreciative that we were able to come up, in this administration, come up collaboratively with Inspire, a solution that let us continue to look at developing 5, as we're just discussed, and developing 7 at the same time. So we believe both of those can be done without any city requirement of a parking garage or any of that. So Valencia is aware of the intentions of Inspire. Inspire is aware of the intentions of Valencia. Another kind of misinformation out there is that that's going to cause some consternation because they're both hotels. Both are aware. Both are moving forward at this point. And if one doesn't move forward, it's not because of the other developers putting a hotel in. So that's a non-issue, and they've known that for months. So that's not new information for either party. So we continue those conversations with them. Obviously, the conversations with Valencia are further behind because they started further behind. But I've met with their entire leadership team here. They flew in from Texas a few months ago, and so at this point, our negotiations continue with them.
Mayor, the Pensacola Energy thing, without speaking to the legal merits or issues, just from a pure risk mitigation standpoint, 18 to 20 million potentially. Are you doing any kind of scenario planning for how the city would pay for that if that comes to pass?
It's probably too early to say. Scenario planning, yeah, I think it was premature to say we're planning out scenarios. I think our primary focus is on the case and where it sits right now and what our legal options are. I think that's where we are, and that's why I say, wondering how big a check someone's going to get is so early right now. Even if we decided to not appeal, that's still going to be a long time. Lots of people need to get paid within that aren't the citizens too. So there's other things to negotiate and that were not going to happen overnight. That's what I could probably say at this point. So no, we have not started to strategize about how any of that would work because there's so many moving parts to that. How would it be conducted? All of that before we even gotten to that point. Yeah.
Wearing my Latino media hat today. Thank you for addressing the ST engineering markers terminated. Several of them told me that late last night they received their retroactively documenting a letter retroactively documenting their last day of work, and that their immigration status may be in jeopardy. They have so many days to comply with immigration, their termination date. Just given the way that all of this kind of over, I was wondering if you might be
No, I'm not, because I don't know. I don't have all the details. To be honest with you, Grace, I don't know the first thing about. I never hired anybody on a temporary visa at my businesses. I just would hate that. That's not as a lack of compassion for people being in a difficult spot, but I'm ill-equipped to be refereeing or speculating between what one company is saying and what citizens are saying. I certainly take them at their word, and as I'll reiterate, I don't care where you work. We all work to support our families and to have a quality of life, and to hear stories of that, regardless of the circumstances, fair, unfair, you don't want to hear that. That people are in a difficult position that's affecting their quality of life. If we can be supportive in any way to help that, yes. I just don't know that myself or the city are qualified to pick winners and losers on who is doing something right and who's doing something wrong, or what they should expect. I'm just not because we don't have compassion for those people, but I don't have the first idea of how any of that, how the hiring happened and all that, and that's why I just want to stay away from becoming kind of the oversight of a private company's HR department of something I just don't understand. Do I want I would love to make sure that those families are supported in the best way that they can be. Absolutely. If what that entails and what the rules are and all that, I apologize, I just can't speak to.
Here, on that same issue, I guess, obviously the city's purpose in funding the whole project was to bring in jobs. Does this give you any pause just hearing these workers' stories and also just the fact that ST Engineering was recruiting internationally to begin with when this was sold to local citizens as jobs for the community?
Yeah. So I honestly think of it's within the same topic, but I think we're talking about two completely different things. One is an issue of quality of life, for a handful of workers that are here is one discussion. So you're asking kind of about the bigger discussion of what's the role of ST Engineering in terms of job creation, economic development, and is not hiring local workers or American workers, the fact that we're having temporary workers come here, what does that say? Listen, here's what the little I do know. The little I do know is, like many industries, finding folks that have the certifications and licenses to do these jobs is very, very difficult. So I'm putting my business owner hat back on and understanding that talent acquisition, there's a perfect world of talent acquisition, and then there's kind of the real world of talent acquisition that basically says, they're not going to be turning away, they're not going to not honor contracts and turn away planes because every one of their employees isn't from Pensacola, and I understand that from a business owner standpoint. But it's why I cannot leave you guys alone without mentioning to you about why it's so vital for that A&P mechanic school to happen. And I think that's the most important part of this project right now, because it's one thing to hope that a kid leaves Pensacola High or Washington High and goes and gets a $70,000 a year job and becomes the breadwinner of their family. I think that's the scenario we think about, but we're missing that conduit. That ST does everything they can to train on the job. They do have some of those structures in place, but if we really want to extract the full potential of the economic development opportunity that ST provides, we're going to have our citizens, our kids, our young people, adults, being able to get certified quickly and at scale to meet not only their needs in terms of running a business, but also to make sure that it's our Pensacola kids that are getting that opportunity. So I look at that as two different things. Regardless of where they're getting their talent right now, I respect a company's ability to be able to perform job duties there. And listen, if people are coming in from on temporary visas, they're supporting our restaurants, they're supporting our local businesses too. And so. To say that because in this temporary type, thing in the short term we're discussing, is not as if that those people coming from outside the country, outside the state, or from Mobile, there's some folks, that might be, commuting from Mobile, still have some economic impact. Maybe it's not the maximum economic impact that we want to see, but that's not to say that it doesn't bring some value, to our community. So, I don't think, I'm not going to speak for ST. This is my opinion, but I would tell you, I think ST is as motivated, probably more motivated than anyone, to be able to have the talent level that they need locally at scale. I don't think that this is something that we're asking a favor for. I think this is something that they need and that they want, and they put up $5 million for that school. I mean, I think if you put your money where your mouth is, they're putting up $5 million of scholarships to make that school happen. So, and it probably would not have happened without, Pensacola State could build it, but they needed some support from the folks that are the end users. So I think that's a good testament to ST's commitment that this is something not only they need, but that's something that's good for the community.
The city has cited hundreds of job opportunities ST Engineering can provide with these terminations.
Mm-hmm.
Were these job opportunities not as numerous as we first thought?
Yeah, I think it's too early to say that. And again, I'm doing my best to navigate to not become their HR department. I don't know who they're interviewing. I don't know what the qualifications are. I certainly understand. I'm not discounting the line of questioning. We are huge financial supporters. This is at our airport. I certainly understand why I'm being asked the question, so don't take that the wrong way. All I'm saying is logistical issues on how their HR department works, how they're selecting people, what certifications they are, what pool of people they're picking from. I just don't. I'm not qualified to speak to that. What I can tell you is, I think it's common sense to say that ST's easiest way to be successful is for there to be local grown talent of which they can be picking from every year. I don't know why that they would have any hesitation or issue about that. And again, they've committed financially to make sure that we have that engine. As far as, does this mean that they can't create enough jobs? I mean, you have to understand we've only got 2 of the 4 hangars that are even done. So hangar 3, when it's done, hangar 3 is already full, like it's service-wise. So they know that they've got to go get talent. So I don't know that this is a question of that they're not going to create the number of jobs. I think what they're battling things that many industries are battling. Just talked about this with American Magic, actually, about composite boat builders, using composite. Well, space does too, and that's a pretty competitive thing. So American Magic, we're even having kind of anticipatory conversations about what can UWF do, what can we do to bring some composite light manufacturing, so you've got a pool of people to be able to hire, and we can continue to generate wealth for our citizens. So they are not unique in that need. I don't think ST that they've got the work, they've got to find the talent to make it happen, and that's, I think, a big part of what that school is going to be.
Mayor, just on that, just can you speak to, obviously ST is going to be with the school hiring local workers. I guess if what these workers from Chile are saying is true, I guess does this hurt ST's credibility with taking care of its workers, since if what they're saying, they're completely dependent on their immigration status for ST to renew these temporary visas, and they're just kind of not renewed with little communication?
Once we get to that last part, that's where I'm not trying to be evasive, and certainly happy to attempt to answer every question you have. The last part of that question becomes me speculating as to what ST is, whose side of the story is correct. I'm not qualified to say. I certainly, Grace has significant credibility for advocating for people who need to be advocated for in this community. I would take her at her word. And ST sent out a statement, and I don't think it would be fair for me to speculate that their side isn't correct either. So, I mean, I would defer that question to ST. I would let them, because if I answer that, then now I'm accepting facts that I don't know are true or not true, and what the circumstances are. So, again, not saying that the ST questions to the city aren't valid. I just mean I'm trying to prevent that going down the road of picking whose side is correct based on facts that I don't have. That's all.
Mayor, I'm not gonna ask you to be the HR department
Yeah.
at ST. I'm gonna keep wearing your businessman's hat.
Yeah.
What role does wage rates play in talent acquisition? Labor economics says the more you pay, the more talent you acquire.
Sure. Well, that's it's a broad question that, of course, at a broad level, naturally, and I think we brought the biggest pay reform in the history of the city for that exact reason. I came into this job all I knew coming into this job was the private market, right? And if you want to have talented people working for you, you've got to, pay a certain wage. To do that, that's the mentality we took here. Is we can't expect when a job's open for a year and a half because it pays $2 an hour less than a fast food restaurant might pay, or something like that, and wonder why it doesn't get filled. It's because the market's competitive, right? So philosophically, of course, the higher your wage index is, and getting our wage index up as a community is important. That's not just the city's job. I was trying to kind of set the example for private to say, and I just had a town hall. Got a lot of questions about employee town hall. Lots of questions about the new format of pay and how we came to it, and what about the old way we did it. And as you can imagine, change causes anxiety. But you'll see in the budget, we spent $2 million last year, year one. We have to maintain that lift. That doesn't go away. Maintain that lift in perpetuity, and then we're giving another $2 million this year. And then there's another $500,000 in year three. So by the time we're done, we are literally $4.5 million high on bringing pay reform to get our wages up that are competitive with other cities and municipalities around the southeast, around the country. We had about 20 comps. So we are walking the walk here in that. I know that's not your question, but I think it sets the philosophy of where we are, which is, of course, I think we've got to raise the wage index, and the more we do that, the more we can attract talent. Now, as it pertains to ST, again, I would defer to ST on getting the most accurate information about what their pay is. I know there was a letter to the editor that said it was $50,000 a year. My understanding, that's every job on site at ST. That's including custodians. That's including if they have food. I don't know. Again, I'm not the HR department, but that's frontline workers, entry level workers. That's every salary that's included, is my understanding. When you get to the certified positions, it's what was probably the 70,000, 72,000, something like that. You'll have to get those numbers from them. So I don't want to be responding to an old number that may or may not be accurate either. But generally, to your question, yes, of course. I think the more we raise our wage index, the more we can attract talented people here. That's good for all.
Mayor, I think it needs to be, in looking at ST, we're in 6 years. It's not like ST all of a sudden appeared and we don't have workers anymore.
Right.
So, and I'm not saying it's your responsibility, but it would seem that somebody dropped the ball, that we don't have the workers. I mean, Career Source, Escarosa, I know the school system, Malcolm Thomas turned down a Triumph grant that would have done training for these and for cyber jobs. Or what's the impact of that? You're sitting in the spot, but this has been discussed. We knew ST was coming here in 2014. So what role did Florida West play or didn't play? What role did Career Source do or didn't do? And where's the school system not producing the people we need?
Listen, I think pre-November 22nd, 2022, I think those are all certainly fair theories, right? I mean, yes, there's time that's here. But all I've done is try to be where our feet are. And if I was the Monday morning quarterback anything, what I would say is I firmly believe what we're working on now at Pensacola State. I think if we had to do all over again, and I'm not speaking for any specific name you mentioned, but just as a whole, as a community, how could we have been better supporters at collaborative with ST is probably to have gotten the school done. I mean, that would be my guess. Now, we had a lot of outreach into some of the high schools and all that, but the engine, it's one thing to say these jobs are coming here, and then we have high school students that may or may not want them, or that hopefully they have access to a car so they can drive out to Georgetown, or hopefully they have those types of things. So that's my analysis, is to say we're trying to hurry up and stand up with, thanks to ST and Pensacola State, what I believe to be the largest engine to realize the potential that we've talked about since 2014.
Well, I mean, the reason they went to Chile to get workers is because they weren't here. So, and I understand, I don't have to be politically correct, but so we're trying to figure out, I mean, there's got to be an analysis being done so that we don't do this again. Like you just said, with American Magic, we got to find workers for them.
Right.
If we're going to attract big manufacturers to our area, who's going to take the lead on being sure that they've got the workers?
Yeah. Well, that reaction to American Magic is probably a little bit of my post reaction to this, in saying that that I think that this is a necessary step. As to, I don't even have the first detail of 2014, 15, 16, 17 history of maybe it was tried and there was a reason it didn't work. Maybe everyone couldn't get on the same page. I'm not sure why it hasn't happened, and that's why I say once we realized it doesn't get as much flash as a new hangar or American Magic does, but I'll tell you that I'm as proud between Erica, myself, Pensacola State, and ST when we walked in to this job, and when we started the Economic Development Office, there was some ambiguity around not only who's quarterbacking the project, but also where does ST go? I mean, I think ST even found themselves, to their credit, wondering, okay, well, if we need resources, if we need this, who's quarterbacking this? I think one of the biggest achievements that's not a tangible building or a tangible thing is that the city's been able to kind of re-wrangle that quarterback position. And that doesn't mean we don't need support from Florida West or Career Source. But what we're saying is the who's on first thing, I think we've solved. And the first byproduct of that is getting Pensacola State and their ask to triumph and ST at the table and saying, ST, you're going to step up in this way. Pensacola State, and we were able to kind of help matchmake those two investments. And I think that's the first tangible product of saying, I think there's some clarity around it's at our airport. And that, again, we can be the triage too. It doesn't mean we're the ones solving all the problems, but someone's got to step up and be that conduit between this huge economic development investment our region has put in and making sure that those things go through. So since November of 22, I can say we've been as urgent as possible to re-wrangle that, eliminate that ambiguity, and get something done. And so that school moving forward, I think where our feet are today is the most ideal scenario. As to ST's ability to what they've done 14, 15, 16 again, you'd have to ask ask them.
Well, obviously the workers aren't here.
Yeah.
I would think, or they get the other workers cheaper than they hire. One or the other.
Well, you've got more context than I do. Yeah, you've got more context than I do. I don't know what was said in 14, 15, 16 about what did the city or the region or promise, and what did they promise. I haven't dug back and read.
Okay.
My desk is I got too much paper on my desk for 2023 and 24. So.
Mayor, I'll shift rudders for you.
All right.
I want to ask you about remaining unallocated ARPA funds.
Mm-hmm.
And what are you going to do with those in relation to the new budget here?
Yeah, so we just had a meeting about that last week. That should also come in August at the council meeting for the reallocation of the leftover funds. We're obviously strategizing. Those are funds that have to be encumbered by December 31st. In our case, I think the county has some funds that have different rules on them that can go a little bit longer. So we've had those initial meetings, and we're looking at things that we need, but also things that can be executed, right? And so you'll see there's some existing ones that aren't changing, like some stormwater projects on Main Street. It's about $1.6 million in for that, but that's already been there. One of the big questions, we have a meeting this week with the city and county leadership about the new House bill as it pertains to homelessness. And what our plan October 1 is going to be. I'd asked us to have that meeting so we can get on the same page about where we're going. There's that 1.1 million-ish of homeless reduction funds that are unencumbered at this point. And you remember our last lesson was we had John DeCarmine come in and say 1.1 million, may not get you the door and the lock, much less the whole thing to be able to operate it functionally. So we've kind of set that aside. That I still very much believe and prioritize the need for low barrier, and frankly, the state does too, because that's what they've told us to do basically by October 1st. But we're looking at some strategic ways to make sure that that we create some housing so as quickly as possible, whether that's small, whether it's the pallet rapid type housing that we can partner with some of our other community partners, and if they've got the land to do it, we're going to be as strategic and creative as possible to make sure that those dollars, so those will remain. What I can tell you right now is that $1 million will remain in homeless reduction. It just may be that the strategy changes a little bit based on the timeline. Another thing we're looking at for that right now is funding and this is really a housing investment, is the way I see it, is funding the land development code, the phase 2 of the land development code. That's a 24-month process. It's expensive and it's time consuming, but I look at it not just as a nice to have, not, hey, what kind of shutters are you allowed to put on your building? It's not just that. I've told you guys, mayors around the country, they're using the land development code to help starting to solve our housing crisis, that we have these areas where you can build one house this size on half an acre that was instituted in the 50s or 60s or 70s. How can we use the land development code to try to solve some of our problems? So that's the way I see that investment. So at this point, I think that'll be part of that'll be something new that's on it. I'd have to go back and look at the entire list. But the bottom line is, you guys will have that probably. I'm thinking about timing from August 8th. You'll probably have that next week, I guess, is when it goes public. I'll have to do you'll see the whole line by line. But it should be the ARPA reallocation. What I hope to be the final ARPA reallocation, that we've got our plan of how we're going to use those funds will be coming to the council on August 8th.
Mayor, the Bay Bluffs Park grant survived the governor's veto pin.
Mm-hmm.
What are the next steps in that?
Yeah, so just recently had a conversation with Tracy Dean at Conservation Florida. Understand first two things two factors in this. Number one, the recipient of the grant funds is Conservation Florida. So obviously it's in tandem with us and will continue to be. But unlike the Baptist Hospital, where we're getting that paperwork done, Conservation Florida is kind of handling that. Secondly, those funds are coming from DEP. To Conservation Florida, so that has not happened yet. So there's no ticking clock of anything waiting on the city of Pensacola. The next step is, I think in the next 2 weeks, I know Amy in my office is working on schedule. We're getting at the staff level all the Conservation Florida folks and all the City of Pensacola folks together, at least on Zoom. Conservation Florida folks are all over the state. So we're going to get together on Zoom with I think what we're shooting for is a September in person and probably some kind of formal announcement. And probably sometime we're hoping for kind of early to mid-September is what we're shooting for. So we'll talk with their team before then, but something formal that the citizens will see will probably be kind of a kickoff in September of this year.
This has to do with the Venmo funeral home closing. The ARB delayed a demolition permit along with citizens citing the building's cultural and architectural significance. Do you have any concerns about losing places like this? And would you like to see dialogue about keeping this building in one?
Sure. First of all, absolutely. This specific building, I'm not. I'm very familiar. I drive by it every day, or every school day at least. But so I'm very familiar with the building, what it is. Councilwoman Broughton and I were talking a little bit about some of the history of it. So I'm not completely. So I'm not going to speak specifically to the merits of that building or not, just because I don't know them. But if you're asking the overall feeling, of course. I mean, I think we've tried to do that. We're continuing conversations with the school district about Gibson, for example, where we're trying to be proactive in saving buildings, even buildings like Gibson that may not be salvageable, and we're still trying to kind of step up and see if there's tax credits or something that can make it happen. So, I think preserving the character of our community is important. Now, some folks will look at one building and say it should be, and some that it shouldn't. So I'm not delving into that on this building or not, just because I don't have the information. But But as a whole, I think it is important for the city to play an active role in figuring out ways to preserve our history and preserve the character of our community. I mean, so many times you look at downtowns and say, here's one block that was beautiful with all these historic buildings, and then, again, the Pensacola parking syndrome thing where they knock down buildings to build parking lots, but then now no one parks in the parking lots because there's nothing to see because they've knocked the buildings down. So, I'm always generally in support of any kind of idea to be able to protect the character of our community.
One last thing, we did a piece over the weekend about the new Hilton Hotel, 600 South Halifax,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
which apparently has passed the ARB's final muster.
Mm-hmm.
And the overwhelming feedback we got from the audit readers and the audience was the Crown Plaza Hotel.
Yes.
What's happening there? Why are developers spending money on new property when you've already got bones over there? Have you talked to the ownership recently?
It hasn't been recent. I would say probably in the last, but I mean it's been within the last 6 months. I don't remember exactly when. I've checked in with them a couple of times, and while we're on the topic of misnomers, I know there's like, well, why are they allowing this and then nothing at the Grand Hotel? I mean, the Grand Hotel is privately owned. I don't think the city of Pensacola can come seize somebody's building because they haven't put anything in it, for a while, as long as they're following the rules. The Grand Hotel, at last conversation, the owners of Grand Hotel continue to condition the building. I just sent an email back this morning. I've met with since I've been mayor, I've probably met with at least 2 that I can think of, maybe 3 different, three, 1 local, 2 not, potential suitors or purchasers of those. And of course, I move my schedule around to make those meetings because I do believe putting something in there is important. I mean, it's the having inventory in our downtown fuels so many other things, hotel inventory. So that's why I like seeing these projects that are being proposed, whether it's Valencia or Inspire or 600 South. But they've got to be able to. It's a privately owned thing. I do worry a little bit about the historic aspect of the train station, and certainly would be motivated that if someone was going to come in and repurpose that in the correct way, that the city be active in that. I would entertain that idea in terms of the preservation aspect. But there's some limited things that we can do, so hopefully I'm like everybody else who doesn't want to see something at the Grand Hotel back where it was, and so anything that the city can do within reason, and I do appreciate that people think that I've got the authority to go tell someone to not build a hotel and they have to build it here. I mean, I don't. Unfortunately, that's not how government works. It is still privately owned. They're following all the rules. And let's just hope that I'm sure there's like the ST conversation. I'm sure the owners are as motivated to sell it as we all are to see something there. And so I have spent time and bandwidth of a project that we don't own that's privately to try to encourage or to try to motivate someone for taking that project on. There are some challenges with it: the age of the tower, the location around rail and some of those things. I know there's some challenges with it, but happy to work through those with any potential suitors. And as far as 600 Halifax, I'm greatly encouraged by that. There's lots of conversations about why is there not this on the roof or this. It's simply development. Go look at every project that's being talked about. The cost of construction plus the cost of money means that you can't do it maybe at the level that you had hoped. And as someone who's done this at a much smaller scale 4 times, I can tell you the first time I designed a brewery or designed a bar, it did not look the way that it looked when it ended up, because things end up costing more. Time, money, cost of money, all have factors. So if it was just by magic, why wouldn't someone want a rooftop amenity? Why wouldn't someone want an extra floor? I mean, of course they would, but the project has to pencil. So my goal is to get people from the conception of an idea to execution. That's what I believe my job to be. And yes, we want the character protected, and in this case, it's in a district of which we have protections, and that's what we asked the ARB to do. So I'm looking forward to having room inventory regardless of where it is, whether it's in an old one or it's in a new one, and we'll continue to encourage that type of growth.
Mayor, last week when we talked about inspired communities, their project, you wanted to have, your statement was, let's get, you wanted to hear from the community.
Mm-hmm.
Is the community, does the community have a venue to really speak? Are you getting what you want from the community on this?
Yeah, so what I said in the council meeting is, the first venue is we've got 7 council members that represent 7 different parts of our city that were elected to do as such. So I think that's really the first phase, because there's the community engagement that is happening, let's say at Hollis T. Williams. Let's use that as an example. What we're wanting from there is to say, hey, we have this pool of funding that is of park property, 1.3 miles, that we control. We've got this pot of money. You tell us what you want to do. CRA, the same thing. We collect these dollars that are these priorities. You tell us what you want to do. This is a little different in the fact that this is a private investment that has to pencil. So it's not going to work the same way where we're going to say, what palm tree do you want? What color? What amenities do you want? Certainly, I'm happy to share anytime anybody,
Right.
council members can on August 8th. I'm sure they're going to share their thoughts about what they want to see there. But it's a little different when it's financed by the private side, and so I don't think I want to overstep and start, being their architect or designer, or give the false presumption to our citizens that that's how it's going to work. But what we're asking the citizens is hotel, condo development, the overall project as a whole. Is this something you want to see or not?
It was a plan.
Mm-hmm.
We're, 20 years from
Right.
when all that happened almost. But there was a plan. It has evolved some. And I don't think anybody's asking you to pick the color of the building.
Yeah.
Or asking the public
Not yet.
the color of the building.
Yeah.
Not yet. Unless they don't like the color.
Right.
But does this fit with what the community wants in the park? I mean, I thought that was where you wanted to go last week.
Yeah, and if you look at the West Main, and Councilwoman Breyer mentioned the plan, and I didn't mean it facetiously. It's like, well, which plan? I mean, if I could probably concoct any kind of development there if I just picked some from 09 and some from 19 and some from and so I think that's why I'm kind of trying to free ourselves from. I don't mean to not follow any of that. And if you look at the West Main plan, I think there's several significant aspects of what's being proposed that does follow the West Main plan. The biggest public thing is going to be the height. Clearly because it's so tangible, because it's seen, and that's going to be the question. And at the end of the day, I would say, we've got a housing crisis, and we've got concerns about the height of a building, and where do we want to land? And it's not a decision for the mayor or the council to make at this juncture. The 12 stories that they're granted, it doesn't matter what my opinion is. I mean, that's a function of being preempted. So what I mean when I say that is, hey, we've got 7 council members. How we could have done this and how traditionally this would have been done is we would have worked on this lease. We would have been sitting here at this exact moment. We wouldn't have even had that meeting in July. We would have just come and said, here's the lease and here's their presentation, same time, and hurry up and make a decision. You've had 3 weeks to look at it. What I meant is we took a proactive step to say, let's put this in the realm of discussion for an extra month. And that's what I actually asked the developers. That wasn't what they asked to do. That's what I asked to do, is to say, don't come with an action item. Come present to the council. Let them hear your concerns. Let the public discuss it. So I encourage the public to reach out to their council member in this specific case, because you have to understand every idea we have about what we want there. All that also pertains to a lease, and it also pertains to private development. So we can want rooftop pools, we can want this, that, and the other, but that's not, the city's not building it. The project still has to be financially viable. And so what I'd never want to do is go tell the public that they get to pick trees and paint colors and hear all these things, and then say, well, Mayor, you told us we were going to have all this feedback and then we didn't have it. I'm not necessarily saying the granular feedback, this is a private development, but if the overwhelming majority of, if 4 more council members from their district say this isn't what we envision for Maritime Park, then I think that their votes should reflect that, and then we'll be back at the drawing board. So I'll be honest, direct feedback, not tagged in things on Facebook, but direct feedback, emails from us. What I'll tell you is I hear a little of both. I hear a little concern because it's new, of the size, the height. I hear a little concern about that. And then folks that don't spend as much time on social media that just see you say, well, man, I'm excited for something to actually happen there. So if I were handicapping it right now, I would say it's kind of 50-50. Yeah, that's just anecdotally what I'm hearing right now.
So what you're looking for is for citizens to go to their council.
Yeah, I think that's in this version of what's being proposed. I think reading a significantly sized lease is probably not a fair expectation of 55,000 citizens. So I think them saying, hey, here's my concern about this. It's too tall. It's too short. It doesn't have enough units. I don't like the pricing. The 80 to 120 conversation, understand, that's also preempted by the state. So whether they do 120, 110, 90, 80, that's all dictated by someone other than the mayor and other than the council. So if they go down the Senate Bill 102 route, if that falls apart at some point during this or after this, that becomes a different discussion. Height becomes a different discussion. All of that, but again, I know the average citizen, understandably, isn't following Senate bills, and I think that can be a misperception sometimes that some of those decisions are being made at our level. But yeah, I would say my anecdotal feedback to the mayor has been 50-50. Some anxiety and concern about size, and is this because it's the first thing there, right? I mean, the first significant. We've got Maritime office building that's been there a long time. It's the first significant $100+ million investment. I don't think, could there ever be any, Rick, you've been here a long time, could there ever be anything that's going to be proposed there that wouldn't have some question? I mean, there's not going to be a unanimous ever,
It's just what you're looking for from the public.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. So I mean, I'll never expect unanimity in a project like this. I don't think we'll ever get that, but what we want is revenue generation. What we want is something that brings value to the community. And so, sure, we want their feedback. I would recommend they talk to their council person and see who will have read the lease and kind of see and see where that feedback lands.
We're continuing to hear a lot of concerns about the parking app.
Mm-hmm.
What are you hearing, and do you think it's just growing pains, or do you think there needs to be something?
If it's the app in particular, the data doesn't suggest that we've had a lot of issues. That we've had significantly less issues than we had on the previous app. I think parking as a whole, of course, is going to be growing pains. And I'm taking on this issue. The easiest thing for me to do is to let the mayor or 2 mayors from now have to go to the 55,000 citizens and have them bond a parking garage. That's the easiest thing for me to do politically. Is just pretend that this isn't an issue or that we don't need to raise money in anticipation of our growth. But I think the responsible thing to do is to take the lumps that we're taking and anticipate growth, and knowing that it's coming, knowing that a $15 million parking garage is coming, knowing that all of these things are happening. And as a matter of fact, and you'll hear us talk about this a lot in the next few weeks, we ran an analysis of the transaction since we went to $1 an hour. And I'll have to get the exact time frame, 52,000 transactions, 25,000 users. Of those, if you take zip codes 32501, 02, 03, 04, 85% of the people who park and use our parking downtown do not live in the city. So 85%. And if you go to users, it's 80% of users. So 4 out of 5 people who are parking and paying downtown, which would be the people that would need a parking garage, for example, don't live here. Maybe they work downtown and live in Pace, or they live in Gulf Breeze, but you can understand when you think about, if we just assume that there's infrastructure that is needed in the coming years because of how amazing our growth has been, why should we sit back and only saddle the 55,000 people, whether they use downtown or not, to have the financial obligation to pay for the growth that is being used by a lot of other folks. So, at the end of the day, I represent the city of Pensacola, and what we see is that this is a much more equitable way for us to. It's a user fee. If you come downtown all the time, you pay a little more. If you never come downtown, how do I go to a citizen in the west side of Pensacola who hasn't been downtown 6 months and say, by the way, we're going to bond a parking garage and we would like some money from you? I mean, the most fair way to do this is let's allow the people who are actually using downtown, who need the garage, who need the improved streets, let's let them help pay for it. And the frustration comes from going from free to paid, understand that. And the frustration number two is the citizens should expect from me and from the city to tell them what they're doing with their money. That's been the missing piece. Because number one, we haven't generated that much money at 50 cents an hour to be able to do anything impactful. But we need to show the citizens they deserve to know that if we're going to $1 an hour and we're going to midnight and we're doing all these things, that here's what you're getting for your money. You're getting a reimagined South Palafox. You're getting a parking garage. You're getting $250,000 or more spent in Jefferson Street garage. Not saying that'll make everybody happy, but I think we can all, it's a little more palatable for all of us when you understand that my dollar is going towards something that will improve my experience when I'm downtown. So that'll start August 1st. We are going to do in the evening, we're going to do a grace period for 45, the new hours will have a 45-day grace period from August 1st to September 15th. And that will be, I don't remember if it's the first ticket or first two, but that is after 7 o'clock for the folks that maybe didn't get the message that we're doing it later at night or later into the night, that they'll get a $0 ticket on their windshield just as a warning, so they know that that's coming. So more to come on that, and we'll have more information for you about how we're going to be tracking that via website. You'll be able to go look at any time and figure out exactly what we're spending our money on in this district, and we'll get all that to you here in the next week or two.
I just have one more question.
Sure.
Sorry. This is related to the Live Local Act. Seminole County is now fighting massive tax exemptions for apartment owners that designate a certain number of units as affordable housing. Would the city of Pensacola consider this to ensure that the people who are supposed to benefit from the act, the renters, actually do?
Yeah, well, that's going to be a project-by-project basis. We have not had any Senate Bill 102 requests. This is our first conversation on Inspire. So I'd hate to give a blanket opinion about what we would challenge or not challenge, because it's all dependent on what the project is and what they're doing and what they're obligating themselves to. But I reiterate, Senate Bill, if people are complying with the Senate Bill 102, that preempts the city government. So if they're following the rules, there isn't a whole lot of wiggle room for us to fight that, because like any state bill, any rules of the state, the city government's preempted by those rules. So I think we'll always look at case by case. The intent of Senate Bill 102 is good. It is to incentivize quickly at scale for private investors who wouldn't otherwise be able to get a project to pencil, but let's have them hurry up and get us that we're all in this housing crisis. So that is the mission and nature of Senate Bill 102, of which I greatly support. But yes, we would always look at things case by case. If there's something that we realize that is an unintended negative impact. I don't think anybody wrote that bill, or that Senator Broxton didn't support it, or Pasadomo. Senator Pasadomo didn't support it because they didn't want something better for the cities and better for the state. So we'll always look at every one of those types of situations, and if there's some action we would need to take, we'll take it. But at this point, I encourage folks that are looking at Senate Bill 102 to come, look at opportunities to invest in the city, and if that incentive, that tax abatement is what incentivizes them to do something they wouldn't normally do, then having more units in the city that are affordable is a good thing. Anything else? All right, thanks, guys.